All right, good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday. Let's take a look and see what Bitcoin is up to. I know that we had a little bit of volatility this morning, so let's take a look and see where we're at for right now. So, as far as the weekly goes, still kind of hovering within this upper area between 63,613 and 64,58. So we're kind of consolidating within this range, which is looking pretty good so far. We could be making a tweezer bottom for the week if we can stay, bullish enough to where we're staying above weekly open, which is around $63,303. Let's go ahead and take a look at our daily. So on the daily time frame, again, we're kind of breaking out of this pattern that I drew the other day, which is a great thing if we can stay above it. There is a potential that since this is the weekend, we can break back inside of it, which if we do, it could still be bullish, but we just want to make sure that we don't lose the structure of the pattern and drop to the downside. So this for right now is a bullish sign. It could signal a trend reversal on the macro time frame, but it's still very early to be able to say that or to be able to really tell. Let's go ahead and move down further into the 12 hour. Still kind of showing the same thing. The last 12-hour candle looks like it closed outside of this pattern, which is great. We did get a pump up to almost match this previous wick here, around 64,000. What was it? 64,360-ish. And it looks like it just fell short of that, around 323, 64,323. So definitely looking to see what we're doing here, if we're going to retest the pattern and come back up, or if we're going to break back inside the pattern. Let's go ahead and move into the 8 hour. So the 8 hour kind of showing the same thing. We did close outside of it, looking to possibly retest the pattern right now. The 4 hour, about the same type of situation there. So nothing different from the 8 hour. Let's see, 1 hour. Yep, looking to dive back in and basically retest that or dive back into the pattern. And then let's take a look at the 15 minutes, see what's going to happen more on a short-term basis here. So I would, for right now, we can potentially bounce off of the pattern. I don't believe the last time I looked at liquidity there was a lot here. I would expect possibly a bounce from maybe the 200 around here. I am eyeing this double bottom right here. So if I were to pull, and I'm going to use a different color for this, but if I were to pull like a local fib here from this impulse, you can see that it takes us to around weekly open. So this is on the board for right now. It does drop us below the 15-minute 200 MA, but that's something that I would possibly be eyeing. I think there might be some liquidity there. I'm not 100% sure. If we lose that, then we go to the next impulse. So basically, the way I draw fibs, and I know I told you guys that I was gonna go over this a little bit, but I look for the local impulses. Okay, so obviously you're gonna pull from the very top, right, of where we're topping out at as far as price goes in the local time frame. But for where you're pulling from the bottom, I basically pull from each one of these impulses, right? So where there's a wick down. So, the first one we would test is 63,303. I would take this, pull it down to the next impulse right here. 63,143 would be potentially another area, right? And again, this is all within the pattern, so all of this is possible, right? And then finally, we could potentially come down here, and this is on the short-term time frame. Now, the bigger time frames, we could really drop quite a bit, and I'll show you that here shortly. But 62,750 would be the other area I would be targeting, from this impulse down here, and I do take it from wick to wick. Sometimes it will front run the wicks, and you'll have to repull, and basically it will be from like the bodies or from this other wick, if it doesn't reach as deep as this wick. So just kind of keep that in mind. It could be from the bodies on the bottom, it could be from this wick or that wick. But normally I like to pull from the wicks. Normally the wicks are fairly accurate here. So taking a look here, we have 63,303, we have about 63,146, and then we have 62,760, it looks like. So let's go ahead and take a look and see how that lines up with our liquidity on trading difference. So Trading difference, the tool that I use for liquidity. We'll get into Kiyotaka, the order book, in a bit, but let's focus on trading different and its liquidity heat map here. And this is the best one that I've found so far. So definitely highly recommend using their tool here. So let's take a look at the 4 hour and see where we're at. So the 4 hour does show that we almost dove into this pool. We were like right next to it. I definitely think that, you know, there's a good possibility that we do dive into this pool. If we do have a trend reversal officially, we will dive into this pool and take out all of this liquidity more than likely. You know, as far as where I would be drawing fib levels here, I think I have this as a possible fib level already, but let me take a look here. So I would first draw from this impulse right here, and then I would draw downward to these bottoms here. All right, let me see. How does that line up? Okay, so I got to pull down all the way to the wick there. All right, perfect. So you can see I already have this line drawn here. So this would be your first take profit if you were to try to long this. Not financial advice, but you know, there's a good chance that we drop a little bit and then we come back up and start to bullishly break out. At least that's what it's showing for right now on the smaller time frames. The next area would probably be up here, so I would take this impulse right here. So 68,989 would be the next area potentially. Let me go ahead and mark that out. So 68,989. Let me let's see here. Style, make it yellow, and then we could potentially get up here. That's 70,945. And then we have all the way up here. We're pulling from, actually, you know what? I'd probably, yeah, we could probably do 72. That aligns with like a 200 almost. And then finally is if you were to pull all the way up here from this wick, and that kind of takes out that triple top right there, which will eventually happen. I know it seems very far away, but we were here not that long ago, just like a couple weeks ago, we were already hovering up here. So taking a look, these are going to be your upper fib levels to watch right here. So 65,674, I'm going to remove this one right here. 68,996, 70,940, 72,490, and then 73,996. So those would be the levels I'd be watching. And then of course, you know, we drill down into the smaller time frames, like the 1 hour, for example. And then we have all these different levels here. So let's take a look at the fib pulls from there and then see how, actually, you know what, let's go to back to the 4 hour. I forgot to see how this lines up with liquidity. So for right now, on the short-term basis, for the 25x, we do have the potential to take out this liquidity right here up to 65,674, that take profit one, or you know, you're basically your first area where you should consider possibly taking profits. The 10x does reach us up to this second area around 69,000, so it kind of dives us into that pool. It really is kind of a stretch though after that. So again, you know, this is concentrated liquidity. There's always liquidity throughout this whole entire, you know, area right here, above and below. But the concentrated liquidity is what usually is taken out first. So that's the only unfortunate thing about this, is that if we do start getting up into here, we're gonna probably have to consolidate for a while, get a few, you know, minor dips potentially to basically add more liquidity to the upside, get more people shorting, right? That's kind of the biggest issue I see right now on a macro time frame, is we don't really have the liquidity to bring us back up here. It's very sparse for the time being. So if we do start taking out these pulls, it's not that it's impossible that we get up here, but we're going to need a lot more consolidated liquidity to build up to get us back up into this range up here. There is some obviously in the 5x and the 3x as well, but in my opinion, there's just not enough to really drive us back up yet. So just kind of keep that in mind. You know, it's not, like I said, it's not impossible, but it's making me a little bit cautious as to saying that we can get all the way back up here when there's not really a lot of concentrated liquidity to bring us back up there, right? let's dive into the 1 hour and take a look and see what's going on here. So when it comes to the 1 hour, I was starting to draw some fib levels today on here, but let's go ahead and remove this and take a look and see what we got going on. So I would say, you know, probably, let me delete this one. I don't think that one's relevant here. Let's get rid of some of these lines and redraw them. I like to do this every once in a while just to kind of recenter myself here. So I would first pull from that wick up to the top, and that would be 63,314. So technically that would be wiping out that double bottom right there. Let's make this white, make it consistent here. So that would be wiping out that double bottom right there, which is definitely a possibility sooner rather than later. I would then pull from this wick right here, which is 63,135, and this should align with what we did previously on the TradingView chart. So it's 63,135, and then coming down here to this last wick right here, for right now, 62,753 would be our next area. Now, you know, absolute worst case scenario, you could, you know, come all the way down here and pull this, and that aligns with that 61,711-ish or 771-ish that I have right here. And then obviously, you know, pulling from right here, you have that 61,476. So I haven't even really, I do have this one marked out, but I'm not really marking any of the other ones out because we first have to get through these lines of support before we can even get into this area. But just keep in mind, guys, that, you know, when you do a V-shaped recovery kind of like this, it is very, it's a very good possibility that eventually you're going to come down here and retest this 786 level, you know, so that'd be around 61,770, 780-ish. Now, the only other thing too down here that is worrisome is that we do have a double bottom, and eventually, you know, double bottoms will reverse price and it won't come back. But, you know, given the market that we're in right now, you know, you have to kind of be cautious and be aware that there's a potential we could come down here, you know, and take out this double bottom, and even, you know, you could even draw it from here, and that aligns with my 6231. But you know, this is in the cards, right? It's not impossible for it to want to come down here, depending on if we get a bearish week, okay? So for right now, let's go ahead and turn back on. I'm going to delete this fib, but let's turn back on our liquidity tool here and take a look and see how that aligns. So you can see here that basically this candle right here could potentially come and visit this 63,317, the direction that we're heading, right? You know, I would expect that we could get a bounce on this green liquidity dot right here, but for right now, since it is a weekend and it looks like it's extremely volatile, I would expect that we would hit somewhere in here, okay? I did have my order here at 63,140 myself. Again, this is not going to be financial advice, but I'm just going to tell you where I have my limit orders at. I am going to front run it, and basically I put my limit order at 63,317 just because it wipes out that double bottom right there. I'm going to take a shot, very small amount for a trade since it is the weekend, but I am going to take a shot and see if we can bounce from here if I get filled. Okay, I'm not going to front run it even more than that though myself, but again, do what you want with that information. There is a potential though that, you know, we reverse for the day, we get even lower than that. So I would say for today, maybe the lowest I would look out for is 62,750. You know, going to this support area right here is a possibility, but you can see how, you know, powerful these support areas are, right? So this was the 100x. If we check off the 50x, you can see that this even gets us down into the 61,711 area, right, and below that. So again, the power of the 786 levels and support and resistance zones is pretty incredible in this market. So that is on the 1 hour time frame, and then if we go into the 15-minute, which we'll look at this heat map here once we get there, you can see it's kind of the same thing, shows a little bit more concentrated liquidity. Again, really good chance that we bounce somewhere in here, right? There's yellow liquidity right here, and if I zoom in even more, it turns red, right? So there's a decent chance that we bounce somewhere in here, okay? 50x, you know, you kind of have the same sort of situation. You have some green here and these red bars here, so it is implying that there's a potential that we could be taking these out soon. Not that we're going to get down here, but you know, just know there's a lot of people longing, right, and longing this move here. So that's why all this built-up liquidity is there. Okay. If we try to align this with our order book here, let's see. We don't really have any real yellow orders. I mean, obviously these are still decent size orders, like 233 Bitcoin, 209 Bitcoin, but usually when it's not a yellow order, it tends to plow through them, okay? It looks like we just got an order put in that's decently high at 63,284, which is right around here, okay? So there's a good chance that this increases in size. But for right now, it looks like we're going to just kind of fall through a lot of these orders, okay? Because there is some bigger orders to the upside. So I would expect for right now, we're still in that downward trend. We're still in that downward move. But, you know, I'm taking a shot and seeing if around that 63,317, if we can bounce and possibly get some upside potential, at least for a bit. Ideally, I would like to ride it up until that 65,656 area, you know, where we can take out that upper liquidity. But I'll probably be taking profits early. I might not ride that whole wave. But that is a potential, right, if we get all the way down here. So anyways, guys, I hope you found this video helpful and informative. I wanted to go over, again, more about how I draw my fib lines and you know, what areas to look out for and how to match that up with liquidity. So again, Trading Different, great tool if you guys want to purchase it. I am working on becoming an affiliate with them as well, so I will be putting that link out once I have it. And then obviously Kiyotaka is free, so feel free to use this at any time. It is somewhat of a version of Trading Different, I believe. You do have some of the tools here on the left-hand side, so feel free to play around with this. And I hope you guys have a wonderful Saturday. I will talk to you tomorrow, and stay safe out there. Take care.